Hi there, I'm Zach Kircher, and you're watching Kircher Talks Entertainment. Oh boy. It was inevitable that after I talked about various topics of gaming news in the past, things would eventually circle back to movie news. Now, normally I don't discuss movie news because a lot of it just boils down to discussions on individual upcoming movies, announcements of movies that will probably never get made, or just vapid discussions about Marvel and Star Wars canon. But sometimes things get announced about the movies that take the entire world by storm, and those are the kinds of stories that I can't ignore. Case in point, Netflix basically said this in relation to Warner Brothers.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Yes, Netflix has secured a deal to acquire Warner Brothers, the titan of a film studio that it is, that has been standing for over a century, for almost $83 billion. In this proposed deal, Netflix would obtain ownership of the film and streaming service library under Warner Brothers, as well as all of their studios, and a nice little bonus is that they would get their video game development studios too. The Discovery side of the business, which is basically all of like the cable networks from what I understand, that will be splintered off into its own entity that is under Discovery, and they're going to retain ownership over channels like CNN, TNT, TBS, and Cartoon Network, although I'm pretty sure that Netflix will still retain ownership over, the franchises that are under Cartoon Network, like all of their Adult Swim stuff and all of their other regular cartoons. This, of course, is all contingent on whether the board of directors at Warner Brothers is going to decide to accept Netflix's deal, or if they decide to accept Paramount's very aggressive hostile takeover bid that they've offered in retaliation to Netflix. And on top of that, we have to wait and see whether the government accepts this transaction. In Netflix's official press release about this whole thing, they estimate that the whole deal, if it goes through, will take about 12 to 18 months to finalize, which is kind of normal for an acquisition of this size. Now, understand that I am not making this video because I'm upset about Warner Brothers specifically getting acquired. I mean, sure, it's a legendary studio that still puts out great movies on occasion, one of which is actually my favorite movie of the year so far, but I can't deny that they've been on a pretty massive decline over the years, not only financially, but, in terms of quality too. I also don't really care about who ultimately owns properties like DC and Harry Potter or Looney Tunes, because no matter what, at the end of the day, these franchises are just going to be looked at as a capital investment by some executive who couldn't really care less about them as actual franchises. But what I am upset about, and what I think you should be upset about too, is what this deal could mean for us as consumers. In this video, I'll be breaking that down under 3 specific reasons. 1, the threat that it poses to physical media. 2, the threat that it poses to movie theaters. And 3, the implied consequences of Netflix becoming a monopoly of sorts. And of course, we'll start off with physical media. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this particular point, especially since if you want a more informed perspective on this specific side of the argument, YouTuber Jeff Rousio, one of the kings of Blu-ray discussion on YouTube as a whole, put out a great video talking about this deal's possible effect on the future of physical media. It's very well researched and he's very eloquent in the delivery of his arguments there, so I'll put a link in the description for you to watch that later. Needless to say, I am very passionate about the idea that people are entitled to ownership. Streaming services like Netflix are completely opposed to this idea because their business model is contingent on you paying a monthly fee for access and convenience, not ownership. If a movie is available on Disney Plus, but, you're walking around Walmart and suddenly you see that same movie on the shelf for $20, yeah, that might be a greater upfront cost that you'll pay, but it's a one-time fee that you have to pay. And then that disc is yours, and it's there for you to enjoy regardless if you still have Disney Plus or not. Now, I use that example because Disney still does put out a lot of physical media, whereas Netflix releasing their content on physical media has always been an extreme rarity. There have been a few examples in the past where they've done it, for shows like Castlevania and Stranger Things, and they've also allowed a few directors to release their films through the Criterion Collection, such as Guillermo del Toro with Pinocchio, Martin Scorsese with The Irishman, Succession, and Noah Baumbach with Marriage Story. The grand majority of content that's available on Netflix's service is only available on that service. And just like how, ironically enough, Warner Brothers literally deleted tons of movies and shows from existence just for write-offs right after, Warner Brothers merged with Discovery a few years back, Netflix could do the same thing if they really wanted to. Now, I'm not saying that this is what Netflix will do if they end up buying Warner Brothers. Even so, locking that enormous library of movies that Warner Brothers has, as well as new movies to be released in the future, would be a devastating loss to consumers who want to actually own copies of those movies. This is especially the case since Warner Brothers actually has done a pretty consistently good job at releasing their physical media in a good quality state. To lose all of that simply because of Netflix, a service that locks bit rates and resolutions behind paywalls, would be terrible. Now, moving on to the movie theater side of this argument, theaters have already been hurt by streaming services for many years since the rise of Netflix as well as their competitors, considering that the pervading wisdom among people is that they'd rather wait for a movie to release on a service so they can watch a movie on their own terms at home, they can pause it and go to the bathroom, whereas they can't at a theater, and then of course, they don't have to pay anything extra to experience something that they might not even like. For those reasons, I can understand people thinking that losing movie theaters might not be a bad thing, considering that ticket prices are expensive, concessions are expensive, certainly, and then, all of that is a topic for another day, though. Otherwise, movie theaters are such an integral part of both worldwide culture as well as the economy at large. And the way that Netflix is seeking to disrupt this long-standing staple of society is quite alarming to me. Now, traditionally, theatrical release windows have been 70 to 90 days on average, meaning that movies would generally stay exclusive to theaters for that time before they would be released to home media, or in more recent times, streaming services where you could rent them. Whenever Netflix has released movies in theaters, though, they typically lasted in theaters for maybe a couple weeks at most before they ended up on the service. And pretty much the only reasons they would do this is for special promotional releases like K-pop Demon Hunters getting the sing-along release in theaters for a short time, as well as some of their movies that are building as like their prestige content qualifying for award season. Netflix's CEO Ted Sarandos has said that the company is still going to honor theatrical release windows for Warner Brothers films, but I'm skeptical of the implications therein. Don't take my word for it. Listen to me read off this quote from him directly. It's not like we have this opposition to movies into theaters. My pushback has been mostly in the fact of the long exclusive windows, which we don't really think are that consumer friendly. But when we talk about keeping HBO operating largely as it is, that also includes their output movie deal with Warner Brothers, which includes a life cycle that starts in the movie theater, which we're going to continue to support. However, Sarandos suggested that life cycle may soon change, or in his words, evolve. I wouldn't look at this as a change in approach for Netflix movies or for Warner movies. I think, over time, the windows will evolve to be much more consumer-friendly, to be able to meet the audience where they are quicker. I'd say right now, you should count on everything that is planned on going to the theater through Warner Brothers will continue to go to the theaters through Warner Brothers, and Netflix movies will take the same strides they have, which is, some of them do have a short run in the theater beforehand. But our primary goal is to bring first-run movies to our members, because that's what they're looking for. Alright, I've had enough of that. Ted, this just sounds like you're saving face, man. That one quote alone, the windows will evolve to be much more consumer-friendly to be able to meet the audience where they are quicker. You know what people are gonna do if they know Warner Brothers movies are just gonna go to Netflix in like 2 to 3 weeks? They're not gonna go to the theater at all. I know that movie theaters are expensive and that people have had bad experiences there. I cannot deny either of those things. However, the sanctity of going to a movie theater is something that I cherish as a movie fan. I love being able to watch a movie at home as much as the next guy, but if I'm being honest here, the convenience of being able to pause a movie whenever I want or just completely shut it off whenever I want to at home, that sometimes is enough to kind of diminish my motivation to even watch a movie to begin with. If I'm on my couch just relaxing after a long day of work, I'd be much more inclined to sit there and play a video game instead, because at least that way my brain is more actively engaged while my body is just kind of vegging out on the couch. With movie theaters, the inconvenience of having to leave my house actually makes me more excited about the opportunity to see a movie, because I'll be paying money to go somewhere that has the prime conditions for engaging with the movie already built into the experience, all the while I have a bag of popcorn or a tray of nachos in my hand. Plus, going to a movie theater with friends also has the same added benefit of enjoying the experience with other people, as well as, standing out in the parking lot afterwards and talking about what you saw together. As much as I do appreciate the convenience of streaming services like Netflix, people need that ability to engage in these social experiences in third places like movie theaters. And honestly, if you want to play the comparison game, movie theaters are still generally a cheaper option than going to like a restaurant, bowling, Topgolf, or whatever type of gimmick that's out there, like, what is the pickleball sports bars or something like that? The more that Netflix disincentivizes customers from going to theaters by just buying up properties that traditional movie studios own, the more of a threat that poses to movie theaters. And this isn't just about moviegoing. I mean, it's about places to work for thousands of people, including students who need that integral work experience at a young age. I say that as someone who worked at a movie theater for years, and I gained that valuable experience. Local economies would also be hurt by not getting the space to advertise on the big screen, and concessions wouldn't be distributed by local supply chains. And the last thing I'll leave you with here, at least on this point, is this. If movie theaters didn't exist, my mom and dad never would have met had they not worked at an independent theater together in the 70s, and then I wouldn't even be here. Theaters, for that reason and more, hold a special place in my heart, and I would hate for something like this Netflix Warner Brothers deal to make them go away. And last but certainly not least, competition is the lifeblood of capitalism at its purest form. Removing competition, essentially by way of financial force, is capitalism at its absolute worst. That's not some kind of political statement, that's just a fact. Now, I say all of that because Netflix is removing Warner Brothers from the equation entirely, which would greatly increase Netflix's market share and dominance in Hollywood. Why should you really care about that, though? I mean, everyone knows that Hollywood is, a hive of scum and villainy, right?
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Consider this quote from Netflix's official press release. This acquisition will improve our offering and accelerate our business for decades to come, continued Greg Peters, co-CEO of Netflix. Warner Brothers has helped define entertainment for more than a century and continues to do so with phenomenal creative executives and production capabilities. With our global reach and proven business model, we can introduce a broader audience to the worlds they create, giving our members more options, attracting more fans to our best-in-class streaming service, strengthening the entire entertainment industry, and creating more value for shareholders. That's it right there. That last statement. I mean, that's really all you need to know. Like, Netflix being a publicly traded company, they're going to keep making decisions that are going to benefit their investors. Those investors being shareholders. And given that they have a market cap of over $400 billion, I mean, what can you expect? This means that they're going to keep on doing what is in the company's best interest, not yours. And what is in the company's best interest is that which helps them get bigger, get more people to buy into their stock, and just keep growing and growing and growing until they pretty much own everything they possibly can in the entertainment industry. I mean, if you want further evidence of why that would be a bad thing, consider this. You know how us gamers were skeptical of when Microsoft bought Activision Blizzards for billions of dollars a couple years back? That skepticism proved to be justified when Microsoft started gutting a lot of their development studios, canceled games left and right, laid off thousands of employees earlier this year, which I also have a video about that too, and then most recently, jacked up the prices of Game Pass while quietly taking away benefits.
Xbox, this is how we f*** you.
All of that just to preserve their profit margins and increase shareholder value somehow. Netflix buying Warner Brothers for the absurd amount of money that they've put on the table will surely put them in a position of so much debt, they're going to have to keep on cutting as many corners as they possibly can with, the movies and shows they produce, the likes of which have already been subject to criticism for looking really cheap. On top of that, if Netflix is to eventually phase out, HBO Max and absorb all of its content into the the Netflix service, who's to say they would eventually turn around and say, screw you guys, we're going to charge you $50 in order to watch Netflix without ads? The American economy is continuing to spiral down a path of removing power and value from the consumer as much as it possibly can, and Netflix is trying to become this entertainment overlord that is spearheading that and just further exacerbating the problem. Now, I've said all of that, but at the end of the day, I'm still conflicted because while I absolutely hate this move by Netflix, I don't hate the service personally. I mean, there's a reason why it's the industry leader, right? Even when you talk about their most basic tier that has ads included in it, compared to other services, like the ad frequency and what you see isn't as bad as what I've experienced in other services. On top of that, their content library is absolutely unparalleled, and I don't want to miss on cool original films that I wouldn't get anywhere else, like, say, the Knives Out sequels. Therein lies the problem. Netflix is positioning itself as this one-stop shop where you pay a flat fee and get, all of the entertainment you could ask for. And so they're making it hard to say no. And if they're able to secure this deal fully to acquire Warner Brothers, that problem is going to be even harder to walk away from. And I guarantee that Netflix is going to take as much advantage of that from consumers as they possibly can. But yeah, even with that being the case, I'm seriously considering getting rid of Netflix. I mean, earlier this week I already canceled HBO Max. If you do the same thing, be like me and try to find other ways to be entertained. Go get like a library card or something. You probably, like me, have a massive backlog of games on Steam, so jump into that. Or here's a bright idea. Just go to the movies. Theaters are being smart and doing a lot more re-releases of old films anyway, or you get these amazing special releases like Tarantino finally releasing Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair. Maybe this really is the best time ever to say no to streaming services and embrace the old way of enjoying entertainment. After all, there's no better way you can fight against a corporation like Netflix than simply rejecting what they're offering you. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving it a like as well as subscribing to the channel. For doing both of those things really does help my channel grow, and I will see you all in the next one.